Andrea, I've got an idea for a podcast.
Tell me more.
Okay, so it's me talking to my dogs.
Are you doing different voices for each dog?
Well, I think what I was planning, I was planning to sort of look at their facial expressions and imagine what they're thinking. And, you know, I could be wrong, but I feel like I've never heard a podcast just yet about someone talking to their dogs. Do you think I'm right about that?
Okay, so Lisa, I think you have an amazing idea, and I think you should pitch it. There's an opportunity I want to tell you about. Our friends at Story Hive are giving away 10 grants of $10,000 each to aspiring podcasters in BC and Alberta. And I don't know if you know this, but since 2013, TELUS Story Hive has funded and supported emerging creators with mentorship and guidance from the National Screen Institute, bringing hundreds of creative Western Canadian projects to life.
This time, they're taking to the airwaves with their inaugural podcast edition, and they're looking for original, non-fiction podcast concept pitches from BC and Alberta residents. Apply before December 2nd at storyhive.com, and you could get $10,000 to get your podcast off the ground. That's storyhive.com for all the details. And remember, I'm the one pitching the dog thing.
You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
Okay, so I've noticed I'm reverting back to a early, I don't know, call it a COVID habit. I'm not sure if that's an expression. Has that been coined yet? A COVID habit?
I mean, it makes sense, but like...
Yeah, it does. I'm going to do it now. So during the early days, I think people remember the panic purchase when you knew that, and you weren't sure how long you're going to be in the house. So you just went...
You had all the beans.
Every single thing, right? I had all those beans. They're all gone now. And then I noticed like a really fun topic on Twitter was, what did you panic purchase? And I thought, oh, wow, everyone did that? Everyone had some weird thing they purchased. And I know for me, I was just like, I bought 3 things of chocolate icing. Those cans, you know? And
Yep.
I actually was not planning to bake a cake at all.
You just wanted to eat the icing?
I did. And I've observed before that to me, cake is just basically there to hold up the icing. Like I don't find the use of cake that important.
Oh, wow. We are such opposites in
Okay,
this
like
regard.
what flavor?
It was just a standard chocolate, whatever, like a milk chocolate. And so as we saw numbers go up and things got a bit stressful this week, there were some elections and stuff. That icing came out, and I'm not regretting it now.
It served you well. It served
me well.
Was there any cake, or was it just the icing consumed?
Was that like a real question or something judgy? Or like...
That was me being passive aggressive.
Yeah. What if I said there were thoughts of cake? Like I had this idea that if I had a cake, this is what I would put on top of it. But in lieu of having cake, I may as well just eat this icing. And I don't see why that's particularly different than a chocolate bar or, say, a mocha, maybe.
I mean, I think it's different than a mocha because, like, that's like a liquid beverage intended to consume. It's got like a staple of coffee and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's
like
it's totally different than a chocolate bar because it's all sugar. It's all sugar.
So what's a chocolate bar? Isn't that all sugar?
It's mostly cocoa.
What's in that icing? It's cocoa.
It's just like a way higher ratio of sugar in icing.
That's true. But it also is very smooth and creamy and makes me think of cake. And cake takes a long time to make.
Like, I think you should eat whatever you like. I honestly support all of your decisions. Mostly, I'm just like, ew, icing is mostly disgusting.
Oh.
I agree with Andrea.
Elaine, help me out here.
I'm pro cake. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love cake.
Yeah,
love cake.
I would just eat the cake.
I'm more of a pie person myself, but like,
okay,
so
but
I
that's
feel
a
like
whole
it's
other
not my
situation.
category. Exactly.
I like a crumble too. Like we could just go through the whole dessert medley, but I find cake often disappointing. Like a dry cake. Like if it's a really good cake, I would argue that you're right. You might not need the icing, but there's a reason why the icing was invented, and it was to compensate for a bad cake, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, for me, it really depends on like what kind of icing we're talking about. I enjoy like a good buttercream, but I don't need a lot of it. And I enjoy a good cream cheese icing, but again, don't need a lot of it. I find people, like how cupcakes were so popular for a long time.
Yeah.
And it always was like 2 inches of dry cake accompanied by 5 inches of disgusting icing.
I never understood it.
I don't understand. I
There were
never
good
understood
cupcakes.
it.
No, come on. There were some when the cupcake phase thing started, like the Magnolia Bakery or whatever in New York. Like I went to in LA. I went to like a cupcake shop that was literally like a delicious little cake, right?
that's
Which
good.
is I think what
That's
they're
good.
supposed to be, right?
I just remember like, yeah, but cupcake. Well, I mean, not to speak ill of dead franchises, but I mean that the thing that ruled our city for a long time, gross, so gross.
But so have all the cupcake places around the world closed?
That's all they sell. I don't. I haven't
Because
checked recently.
like Cupcake closed a few years ago now in Vancouver, but I wonder if it's still a thing in other cities.
There was a pretty popular one in Toronto. It's definitely still. I feel like it's very popular with office crowds celebrating birthdays.
Oh, that's a good idea though.
Well,
then everyone can have a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you don't have to like, especially in like COVID times, like if you're gonna do that kind of stuff, no one's spraying their germs across a cake. They just have an individual. Like my sister made cupcakes for my grandma's 87th birthday, just this past weekend, and like, she was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get a candle," and I literally screamed at her. I was like, "What do you mean you're gonna get a candle? Like what?" And she's
things
like,
we used to do.
I know, and she's like, "It's a cupcake. Like
everything.
just calm down." And I was like, "Oh, okay." That's fine. But she has to only blow in her tiny, like, she has to put a hand around. Anyway, I had a lot of rules for that.
I don't blame you. And anyway, I don't think that, like, okay, to segue off what you're saying, I do not think there's going to become like sort of just like an icing shop. Although I would go there.
Wouldn't that be something?
In some ways, like Purdy's or a chocolate shop is similar, right? Because they're just
like a fudge store.
like a fudge store.
Like a fudge store is the closest I can think to like a sort of slightly solidified icing.
Yeah, I mean, like it is except for that chocolate is good and icing is not.
Are you all like? I have a feeling all three of you are trying really hard to just not be completely disgusted in me, just like full on. Oh my God! Please talk to someone. You're obviously.
No, I know lots. I know lots of people who love icing and don't like cake, and I love to hang out with those people because I give them all my icing and they give me all their cake.
It's true.
Yeah.
We need each other.
Sometimes you get a good cake to icing ratio. I believe I've discussed on this very podcast my belief in the importance of ratios in our own personal lives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when you get a really, really good cake and then a really good icing ratio, honestly, what is better? But it has to be a good cake. And I find most cakes very disappointing.
Well, I mean, these are some really
That's
hot,
sad.
vivid takes. No, I'm kidding.
Silent.
I didn't realize you.
Silence.
I didn't realize you felt that way about cake. That's sad.
Sad?
I love the framework about sad.
Well, because I've not had you feel bad because you're like,
Well, you just,
I've never had
every
good
cake. Yeah, every cake's
I've had
disappointing to you.
I've had good cake. I'm just saying that I find a lot of cakes disappointing. Come on. In your life, how many cakes have just been the best thing you've ever had compared to like some just adequate cakes?
I'm very selective about my cakes, so I feel like I've had a good run.
Yeah, I'm really thinking about it.
Yeah, this also just makes me want to bake you a cake, Lisa.
That's nice.
I'm
Wow,
not gonna
maybe
stop
that's what.
you.
Oh my God, maybe that's what she's doing. She
Oh,
wants all of
wow,
us
look
to
at her.
send the cakes to her house and just be like, taste this.
If there's
You
one
know-
thing you know about Lisa, she knows the long game. That's definitely
One of
This whole thing was about getting cakes baked for me. Moist cakes.
One of the things that I love so much, which is not as popular anymore, but I love it, is getting a whipped cream cake. And so it's like
a Black Foresty type thing?
No,
or?
God, no. No, literally a cake that replaces icing and just uses whipped cream instead.
Oh, wow.
That's popular in Chinese bakeries.
Oh, I love it so much.
I would eat that.
It's so good. Yeah.
But that's similar. Like, I kind of, to take it in another direction, I feel very similarly about gravy and sauces in general.
Gravy. You know.
Like, so many things are disappointing until you throw on a béarnaise or gravy or a hollandaise, and then whatever's underneath it, you're like, I can eat this.
I can get on board with that. Yeah.
Nope. I reject this entirely. Sauces make everything. I like some sauce, but I like a soft hand with a sauce. I think making stuff soggy is disgusting.
You eat it quickly; it's not soggy.
You can't eat fast enough to like. I'm like
poutine. Come on, poutine is like one of the best things that's ever happened to food.
It took me a very long time to get on board with poutine, and I hate beef gravy. I think it's the most disgusting thing in the whole world. I also don't like chicken gravy, but I will enjoy a mushroom gravy or a miso gravy. So that's how I've come around to poutine.
Check. I mean, all of it. Yeah.
I will say, I've had lunch with Andrea where she scraped all the gravy off of her food and then just offered me her bowl of scraped off gravy.
Wow.
And you've taken it. Don't pretend you haven't. Come on. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
Please.
Oh, I'm Elaine Chau.
Yay! And you're listening to Pop This, and we're so excited today. We have our special guest, Elaine Chau, who I surprised and made say her own name into the microphone. I'm so sorry. And we are talking about In the Mood for Love, which is just like, what a beautiful film. It's turned 20 this year, and shamefully, this is the first time I've seen it.
Oh.
Wow. Oh.
Okay, I waited
so
for that
shocked.
round of gasps.
My icing is fine on this front now.
Yeah.
I knew that I could take away any shame around icing. And
now the icing is the second most shocking thing.
The second most shocking thing.
On this podcast.
Yeah,
but we're so excited.
And we did want to have Elaine as our guest because, okay, you said 30 times you've seen it. Is that correct, or is that a guess?
Probably. I mean, it's an estimate. I've definitely seen it many, many times over, for sure.
Is it your most favorite movie or like a top 5?
It is in close contention with Chungking Express, which is another Wong Kar-wai film. So it's like, for me, top those are the top 2, but they kind of rotate sometimes between top position and second.
I love it. I'm so excited to have you here to talk about this movie with us. Let's just briefly sort of set the stage. We're going to do the background synopsis and the bio for our wonderful guest. So I'm happy to read the background right now, and then we'll just go around. In the Mood for Love is a 2000 Hong Kong romantic drama film written, produced, and directed by Wong Kar-wai. Its original Chinese title means Flowery Years. It tells the story of a man, played by Tony Leung, and a woman, Maggie Chung, whose spouses have an affair together and who slowly develop feelings for each other. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or, and Tony Leung was awarded Best Actor, the first Hong Kong actor to win this award at Cannes. In a 2016 survey by the BBC, voted the second best film of the 21st century by 177 film critics. Did I look up what the first best film? No. I don't even care.
It's Mulholland Drive.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. But, okay. Whatevs. I'm going to vote for this one over Mulholland Drive, but I know that a lot of film critics really loved that sex scene in Mulholland Drive. So, I mean, what am I supposed to do? How can I argue with a bunch of film critics from around the world that are mostly straight white men? Okay.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I'll do synopsis.
Yes.
This is a synopsis from Lainey Gossip, written by Lainey. Set in 1962 Hong Kong, among an enclave of Shanghainese expats, In the Mood for Love focuses on two lonely people. Chau Mo Wan, played by Tony Leung, and Su Li Zhen, played by Maggie Chung. They move in next door to each other on one hectic day and settle into domestic routines with their largely absent spouses. Only ever heard out of frame or glimpsed with their faces obscured, Chau's wife and Sue's husband are ephemeral presences whose absences come in to define the loneliness that plagues both Chau and Sue. Eventually, they connect through neighborliness and then one night confess over dinner that their spouses are involved in an affair. This draws Chau and Sue closer, but though they fall in love, they do not consummate their relationship, not wishing to stoop as low as their partners.
AG, you want to read the bio for Elaine?
Sure. CBC producer Elaine Chau came to CBC through the Peter Zosky internship and spent the beginning of her career chasing the news for the early edition in Vancouver. She just spent 2 years on Q with Tom Power, where she honed her arts journalism skills. Elaine is most proud of an award-winning program she hosted and co-produced, Wu Guai, Hong Kong Homecoming, about the legacy of Hong Kong immigrants in Vancouver. She's a coffee nerd, a dedicated eater, and makes really delicious pies.
And soon to be cakes.
For Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, like, look, I'll take your cake just as proof that you make a moist cake.
It's only fair.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. As Lisa said, like, you have watched this film a lot. And I just love to know, like, your first time seeing it and sort of, why it's resonated so much with you.
I can't even quite pinpoint like the precise first time because I've seen it so many times. It all blurs together. But I think it was definitely with my father. And my father is a huge Wong Kar-wai fan. And I think something about Wong Kar-wai's films really kind of give us a language of understanding Hong Kong and giving you a sense of what it's like to live there, how frenetic it is, how, like in this case, giving you a real sense of 1960s Hong Kong. And there's so much nostalgia to it, right? And I just remember watching it with my dad and just even though I never lived through that time, I yearned for it, like just because of how beautifully it takes you into its universe and with these people. And it just always, I have to say that in this week of, there's a bit of news happening in the world. It was a joyful respite to revisit it, like, this week. And it just always makes me think about Hong Kong, like, and really like a place that I am proud to call home, even though I don't live there full time anymore. And it just really is, it's such a beautifully nostalgic film.
Yeah, and I should say just that we recorded this the day after the American election, and it will be released. If you're listening to this right now, you're hearing it a week after that. So this is
maybe the United States has a new president, maybe not. We don't even know that.
Don't even know, but In the Mood for Love really was quite a beautiful touchstone this week for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That makes a lot of sense. Like I like particularly like the familial relationship that you have to the city as like a space of home. And even though obviously you weren't alive in 1962, unless you have incredible skincare like trips that you want to just like.
It's all the pies.
I know.
Like tell me just like a little bit about like what your sort of like own memories of Hong Kong are like juxtaposed with this.
I think, it's really funny because, for one aspect that really kind of takes me back to Hong Kong that is reflected in the film is the restaurant that they frequent, right? And these are called like cha chan tangs. And they're kind of a fusion of like Western, like certain Western style foods, but in a merge of like Hong Kong cuisine. And like those places are so like I remember them so fondly because it's the kind of place that would be just around the corner. Like there would be so many of them that there was always, there would be one that you go to in your own neighborhood. And I've actually been to the one that they filmed in, which doesn't exist anymore, called the Goldfinch. And like, I think for me, because food in food culture in Hong Kong is so strong, and so many of our memories are tied with different types of food, that is definitely an element in the film that really kind of just takes me back to just my own memories of eating similar dishes that they eat within the film, of like going to the noodle stand. Like I've heard like my mom talk about that. They didn't quite have that in the 90s when I was growing up. But just kind of that, all those very mundane things feel so familiar. Like the apartments even, right? Like I've been to very similar kind of cramped apartments. And so just like the way that the film is framed, and just it really does give you a real sense of the streetscape, certainly, like in Hong Kong.
It was so beautiful, and I just loved, I felt like the way in which the camera sort of like hugs the curves of every building and the stairwells, and that sort of everything is so intimate, which is perfect in sort of like evoking this very complicated love story that like a little, like as someone who just saw it for the first time, I didn't know, when you're seeing those sort of time jumps, and you're seeing different, like you're not understanding, at least I didn't understand at first, that we're seeing them play act how they think the affair could have started between their spouses. I thought that they had gone to their little like sort of, like red room hotel, which looked beautiful, by the way, and that they had like a one night stand to get it out of their systems, and then they had gone back to sort of this like tepid, sort of like inching towards each other as friends. It took me too long to understand that had never happened. And that it was just sort of them, doing this thing that I think is so beautiful and so heartbreaking, like extra heartbreaking, is to just like act out this sort of pathway to infidelity with another person. Like, oh my God, is anything like more sort of like torturous than that? I don't know.
Also, I just want to say too that I think that the things that I really loved, coming just from thinking about the music, it was that what I thought was really interesting is there's only really 3 pieces of music in it. There's the original score, which is so haunting that keeps coming back, and there's 2 Nat King Cole songs in Spanish, which is very odd. Like at first I was, when the first time I saw it, I remember thinking, because Nat King Cole is my absolute favorite singer, but why is Nat King Cole singing in Spanish in this movie? But I was thinking, like, it's one of those movies that I can understand why you want to see many, many times, because that refrain of just the same songs over and over again really establishes the sameness, this, the intimacy, the closeness, that this is just the only experience you're having right now, and how that music contributes. Like, it's almost as if when you hear that theme music start with those strings, you just, you feel like you're even sucked more into this space. And so to me, this is just a movie that is there's not a misstep. Every single thing is perfect.
There's something very circular about it, right? Like from the music to you're seeing the same alleyways, you're seeing the same staircases, it feels like you're constantly re-experiencing the film.
Same conversations too, like with the landlady always, are you going to come for a meal? And her kind of bossing her about with things in her life and the purses and the place where she works. And it's just such an interesting contrast. You can kind of, it's probably not fair to say this, but I'll say it. But I don't know. It's not the right thing. But there is something so sort of dismal and sad. And like, you can see why somebody would be like, I'll do anything just not to feel the same constant, daily, exact same thing. I'll even, I don't know, just have an affair with this person. Who knows what'll happen? We'll see. You know, you can start to see lots of different dimensions of the story.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of my favorite movies too. And I think, you know, like I've watched it maybe a dozen times, and I think you can watch it for the cinematography, which I think is the most beautiful cinematography on film, maybe. And you can watch it to sort of think about, you know, the culture of Hong Kong in the 1960s. And then you can watch it to think about this story about, you know, like love and longing and, you know, like loss. And so, yeah, I just find myself, you know, thinking about different things like each time I see the film. And it had been a long time since, maybe a few years since I'd seen it, and seeing it again is just like, man, this is as good as I remember. Like, you know, some movies you go back and rewatch and it's like, you know, maybe I was experiencing a moment when I loved that movie and now it's past. But like for In the Mood for Love, I just feel like every time I've watched it over the years, it still stands up, and it's still amazing. Well,
it's like a very specific film if you want to experience, as you were saying, like Hong Kong in the early 1960s, but also the story of love and infidelity and longing and delicious noodles has never ended, right?
Fashion.
Like
Fashion.
Fashion.
Oh my God, the fashion.
Right, the fashion. But even the fashion is kind of timeless too, because there's such classic looks that's the suit he was always in, that white shirt, and her beautiful, beautiful dresses. Yeah, like all of that, I think you could just wear again.
But I mean, for the, you know, like Maggie's cheongsams are like iconic from this movie, and it also like makes me nostalgic because my mom, you know, it's like looking at my mom's cheongsams from when she was young, and you know, like they're very similar with all these like bright patterns and high necks, and you know, like there's some feeling about it that makes me feel really like happy and nostalgic watching that.
So how many of those dresses did your mom have? Because it sure seemed like our character here had 90. I don't know, like
I think there were over 30 within the 90-minute film. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I was intrigued to each different one, but they have a sameness. But then again, the pattern, whenever the pattern or the color changes, it changes the whole scene.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like my mom has only saved like her favorite ones from the 60s, so she probably has about a dozen, I would say.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And she was like much smaller than me, so there's no way I could ever wear them at any point in my life. So
well, I mean, those scenes of her climbing the stairs and the way her body just kind of sidled from side to, I don't even think she was necessarily even trying to be sexy. She's just one of those people that probably gets up sexy. She probably brushes her teeth sexy. She probably,
well, I mean,
you know, like goes to the post office sexy. Like
Hong Kong's famous for custom tailoring, so like all those,
it's true.
It's really common for all of those dresses to be custom made for people.
And that makes sense. And Maggie Cheung is just, I think, is like effortlessly elegant in everything that she does. She's a queen.
Yeah. Well, the patterns are just, I was hypnotized by the patterns of all of the dresses, and even the pattern of the wallpaper in the apartment, that purple and those like textures of purple. And I kept thinking, my God, is there anything more beautiful than how this film looks? And I can't think of it. Like and because of how beautiful it looks, because of the attention to detail, but also all the things that they don't ever tell you or show you or spell out for you, I think, you know, that's one of the ways that you can rewatch this movie probably like 1,000 times and see something slightly different every single time. Like a different layer is revealed to you on repeated viewings, and it rewards repeated viewings. And I just think that's That's such a rare thing for a film.
What do you think was the decision around not showing us the face or like of their spouses? It was a very interesting decision to, I mean, we hear her husband's voice, we see the back of his wife and on the phone and things, but we never see them. And why do you think that was?
Well, I've read that Wong Kar-wai, when he was, thinking about the shots in this movie, like the movie's about like his memories as a child. And so that's why you see like a lot of camera angles are kind of low and like they're peeking out behind curtains or behind furniture or stuff like that. Cause it's like his memories of being a child and seeing adults and how they act and, like what they look like. And so I think maybe it's just like a suggestion that like a kid, like a child or doesn't necessarily know the full story or remember, every person that was in the room. And so I don't know. I think it's probably related to that.
And I guess by not seeing the spouses, we're also kind of forced into a greater intimacy with the two main characters. Like we're not distracted by anything else other than them. That I took it as it's meant to shift our attention more to Mr. Chau and Mrs. Chan.
Well, and we don't have to, like, the cheating spouses, we don't have to identify with them at all. We just are like, these two are the people that we care about. And like, I feel like we are trusted as viewers in a way that we rarely are in movies. Like we are actually like treated as grown-ups who have our own perspectives and bring our own stories to this film. And we're not being instructed as to how to feel every 5 seconds, which is, wow. What a refreshing take as a director.
I was kind of thinking too that, I don't know, like I guess we're all going to put our own stories on it, but that it was almost as if the director was saying it doesn't matter what they look like. Falling in love is about so much more. That because we could easily, if you hear someone's having an affair, your first thought is, oh, they must be more attractive. They must be younger. They must be something. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's just their availability or the way they care about you or the circumstance, right? And so I feel like by not knowing what the other couple look like, you're less distracted. Like you don't say those things like, that's a lateral move or,
Yeah, like we only hear what they look like through the observations of the people that they're living with. And that I think that's really useful for us. I think, and it makes a lot of sense that like we just see them on their own so often, and we feel the loneliness of their lives. They're spending evenings at work until like 8 o'clock or whatever, and maybe that's just like a norm of the times. I'm not sure, but like.
So they're always going to movies on their own. Like she was always
just always alone and like wanting to like not bond with the families who they're renting the room from, and like they want to try and keep up these like barriers, and they know that it's not quote unquote normal for their spouses to spend so long away from their home life, so they know something is falling apart. Like it's just kind of heartbreaking. And like I like as I was watching it, I was just like, I couldn't believe how much I was rooting for them to just even have a smooch. I just wanted a little kiss,
but there was just something. So I don't think I've seen a lot of movies where like this kind of theme comes up, right? And I don't think I've ever really thought as much about this idea of I don't want to like be like them. Then we're just, because not everyone can do like Shania Twain and marry your, so your husband leaves you for your best friend and then you marry his or her husband. Like convenient. It's very similar to this story, but
it is. If people were just more open about, I guess, wanting to partner swap, we could probably like avoid a lot of breakups. But it's so taboo.
There was something
taboo.
Very tantalizingly beautiful about that idea of wanting to feel like then we're just the same as them, and they tried, like they basically were so selfish they didn't even care how we would feel. at all. And to want to try and not be that is, I don't know, that was just something I hadn't thought of before I saw this movie. But maybe that's a product of the times. Maybe obviously, Shania Twain taught us that it's fine. It's fine.
No, I think it was really effective, and there's something that, like, I mean, this movie is an incredibly sexy movie, but there is no sex in it at all.
Right? Yeah.
The most we get is a dip of some steak in hot mustard, which again, whoo, boy, that was good for me. And then, they touch hands. Like that's like all we get. And
all those smoking shots, which are extremely.
Oh my God! When she leaves the cigarette in his home,
yes.
with the lipstick on it, with the lipstick on the end, like, oh my God, that is a power move. And I mean, it's a lot of travel for a lipstick cigarette, but like whatever, it's fine. But like still in all, I was just like, wow, this movie has blown my mind on so many levels, and I might never recover.
No, I do. I almost feel like you kind of, I don't know how, Elaine, how you watch the movie, but with seeing it so many times. No, I mean physically, I know you watch on the screen, but I mean, I don't know if all of a sudden you just get into a kind of a state where you're like going, you know how it is, like you want to watch a movie, when you want to watch a movie again, there's some sort of thing that happens to you. You're like, oh, I want to feel that.
Yeah.
I want to go and feel that same feeling. Is that what happens?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I don't know, it's weird to say that a film that is in so many ways about pain and loneliness, how that could be so comforting. But there is like a rhythm, and as you say, like the music and the cinematography that I find incredibly soothing. I think because it does reflect not only kind of the story of longing, but also it just really honors Hong Kong as a beautiful place as well.
When you come back to it, like, do you remember whether or not you sort of like fell in love with them while they were falling in love? Or is it sort of like just a movie that you're really experiencing wholly differently because you're sort of identifying so much with place and setting and theme, and you're not quite like glomming onto the character development in the same way?
I feel like this is the kind of film where, like, I don't think it would have worked with any other actors than these two, than Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung. And so I think I find myself over the years of rewatching, like, really noticing it's all about those slight change in postures, the glances, the sly smile, as I think you've mentioned, Andrea. And it's, yeah, so I feel like even though, like, I'm captivated all at once by all of these layers, but I think at the heart of it, it is really about the two of them and the intimacy that you see grow. Like, I love that scene, the sequence of scenes where they're like hiding out in the room.
Yes.
The landlord is like, they're playing mahjong. It would be awkward if she like left the room. And it just gets progressively more awkward because she has to stay the night, and then he buys breakfast and brings it. And there's just like something, and I guess it's the way that you see that scene as well, is that you really feel like you're spying on them, the way that it's framed. And like, just like, you really like, though, that just really, I found myself like in this recent rewatching, just, yeah, it felt, watching that scene felt like a comforting hug. Like, just, I think it was like also the fact that it was a bit of levity to it all too, that it was a bit different tonally than, yeah, like they're just, these two actors, like, yeah, I don't think this film would have been possible without them. And like, my appreciation for them, like, really has grown over the years of watching.
But yeah, but that scene feels funny because I don't know about you, but when I was a child, I was at so many parties with my family where the aunties and the grandmas were all playing mahjong like all night, and they didn't want to stop, and it was just that sound of mahjong tiles like for the entire night, and them telling everybody they were just going to do one more round, and it just being like seemingly never ending, and everybody kind of being ready to go home, but you're just waiting for your grandma to finish playing mahjong.
That makes me so happy. When do you get to take up mahjong then, AG? Like,
by rights, I should have done it by now already. You need like 4 people though, so it looks like we have a 4. So.
Oh wow!
I have a set. So
that's so exciting.
We have to wait for COVID to be over.
Yeah,
and then we should all take it up. Actually,
one of the things that I love so much is just like when we meet like sort of both the characters. We're meeting them at this like sort of precise moment where we understand this is the first time potentially that they have intersected as well. And like you have this sort of like they miss each other for a few days at first, and then like finally, and there's a buildup, even though we don't know why. Like we're just like we don't know these people yet. Like why do we care? But then when they finally do meet, the chemistry between them is exquisite. I'm going to go back to sort of the sexiness of this movie because I'm so sorry. Elaine, I just want to explain to you that I have decreed my 40s as like my horny 40s. It's just a thing. And I'm 41 and I thought it was just going to be 40, but like I'm really into sort of just like being like, yes, this works for me. I am responding to this. And so this movie, so many feelings. And this is why I wanted the kiss, but I didn't need the kiss. But as soon as we like meet them, they have this sort of like explosiveness in how they interact and the way that they come together. And even though it's like a quiet film, like I think partly that's why it's so compelling as outsiders, because we're watching people who obviously do have this connection behaving in a ultimately really like ethically responsible way. Like they're holding themselves to this slightly like higher standard than they've been, it's not a revenge movie. It's not like we're going to get back at our exes. Like,
no, that's what I mean. That's why it feels different. Mm-hmm.
It does. It really does. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's something like really powerful about watching people like confront their hurt and find catharsis, even if it's not the catharsis we might have chosen for them. Like he seems to get to go off and leave his wife. She ends up with a child and is maybe still with her husband.
You know what's interesting? My husband Joe teaches at SFU. He teaches film history, and he often screens his film for his students. And he said that in the discussions, students are convinced that they consummated their relationship and that child is his.
That's what I was getting.
And I just had never thought that as a possibility.
But that's such a popular theme now in movies, right?
That's
like,
a thing.
Honestly,
that's what I thought at first, and then I was like, oh no, they never, no.
Yeah,
no.
That would be
I don't think
the whole
so.
movie's pointless then. I mean, really, like that would just. Yeah, that would. One of the things I was thinking about though, and that's because probably and it almost had a feeling of a film noir without a murder. But there was something sort of, it wasn't quite sinister, but there is always, I guess it's that lust and that feelings and the sadness and the always brewing underneath and the rain and the dark alleys. All the rain. Gosh, that's a lot of rain. The steam coming up, the cabs. Maybe it's the era as well. Like film noirs tend to be sort of like that between that 40s and 60s. But there is a sense that like when we talk about it, there really isn't like, it's not like a super big plot with a whole bunch of developments and things, right? So sometimes when the first time I watched it, I think I was expecting someone to get killed or something. I don't know. I was thinking something would happen. And again, that speaks to why you want to see it again, because I think after the first time of doing all of the things we're discussing, which is, oh, okay, that's not a kid. And oh, they never actually get together. Okay, I'm going to watch it again now. And I'm just going to enjoy the fact that these two people had this thing which is hard to define, but it got them through something.
I think there's almost something more romantic about them not consummating it, you know, that it kind of remains pristine, like this. That it is. Yeah, to me, I think I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. That there was something more beautiful.
I think about that. There's a movie called like Two People Meet on a Train or something. It's with Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro. Do you know that? It's like a 90s film. And they're like, it's this film where they're commuting in the morning and they meet and they start talking and they fall in love. And they're both married to other people. But finally, they've just decided that they want to go off and be on their own. Nothing. They've only ever met on the train. They've never, I think they only had one encounter like outside of that commute.
So nothing real.
No. So Robert De Niro goes to his wife and tells her, like, I've got to tell you this thing has happened. And then he says to her, you know, like he's saying how much he loves her. And then he says, but we haven't had any sex at all. And she goes, that's so much worse.
Yeah.
You feel this way.
Yeah.
And you've done like, and it's all just because of the talking. And it's all just because of the being together.
Yeah. But it's also super not real if you're literally only ever together on a train. I have to.
It's a long commute. I don't know.
But like, I mean, my God, like I'm just like, yeah. Once you take it off a train and get into the real life of like, well, I've got like, you know, these 6 obligations to, you know, sort of walk dogs and caretake for children, and it's like nothing's as sexy as just like uninterrupted hour of like quality conversation on a train. Like, yeah, probably most couples would want that. But like they have life. And this is, and sorry, I'm mad now at Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro and those characters. Even though I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, well, that's,
I got real but that's but that's the thing I like so much about In the Mood for Love is just that like we see them build something that can be real, you know? Like it's not like their spouses are engaged in this affair that I think is deeply unreal because like it's always away from home and they're having like shopping trips to Japan and they've got like it's not in the they're not walking up and down the stairs in the rain to the noodle shop every night, like, you know, like that is real. Or like, you know, you like, why didn't you call me at work today? Like that, like it's just
also a different time.
Moments.
I would assume. I have never been to Hong Kong, so I don't know what it's like now, and I know some cities are better at this than others, but the fact that they're always dressed so well, like we talk, you know what I mean? Like now you'd be meeting in yoga pants. I mean, let's just be honest, right? You'd be like, I mean, sidling down the hall and don't even look at me. I'm just rushing out to get some noodles. I swear to God, I haven't showered in days, you know, like.
Yeah. But even the landlady remarked on how much attention she paid to her.
Yes, that's true.
Dresses, right? Like,
yeah.
Is so like with each sort of like watch that you've done, Elaine, over the years, like, do you remember like how old you were the first time you saw this movie?
It would have been shortly after it came out. So I would have been a teenager. Yeah, it would have been like 13, 14, something like that.
So your relationship has like you've become an adult as and growing up with this movie. Like, do you have like a different adult perspective than a child perspective?
I think that there's a part in the movie where Maggie Cheung's character talks about how difficult marriage is. Do you guys recall this?
Yes.
And how like you're responsible for this other person. And like she's basically making the case that they shouldn't consummate their feelings, right? And I think that growing up, like I have come to understand that position more. Like I think when I was younger, like I couldn't quite understand, or not as much, like why they wouldn't have ended up together, like why this wasn't a happier, easily could have been like a classic kind of romantic comedy ending, right? Not a comedy drama ending.
A Shania Twain ending.
Exactly.
She rolls down the stairs with the noodles in her hair.
And that I guess I understood, because of, you know, going through many relationships in that time, that, the measure of love doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily means consummating it in some kind of like traditional way of becoming a couple and so forth. Like, it doesn't make that love, it's not any less, it's not valued any less if it's not consummated. And I think I came to understand that better over the years.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I was reading that I thought was just really interesting, because I feel like it's not something that I read a lot of reviews after I saw the film, just as I was putting together the outline, and this piece that Mohammed Khalil Arb wrote. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to quote like a little bit. While In the Mood for Love is riddled with nostalgia, a theme that stretches across Wong's filmography, it does not solely create an idealized reality. With the film's highly impressionistic reconstruction of Hong Kong, it's easy to get lost in the beauty of its cinematography. However, in between its picturesque pangs of desire are signifiers of Hong Kong's capitalist economy and political landscape. And I thought that was just so interesting to sort of like, and he goes on in his review to sort of like talk about the politics of the time as well. And, the sort of like how that is a backdrop to this movie, and how it sort of impacts, it's the hidden character, as it were, even though it's there all the time. It's not sort of like directly addressed that much. And I was just wondering if that's like one of the things that, in your watching of the movie over and over again, what has been your observation?
It's like this, the early 60s were such a time of like economic boom in Hong Kong, and like expansion of the manufacturing industry in particular. And like what you just mentioned made me think of like the rice cooker scene, like the idea of like technology being able to help us work more, basically, right? And for women to work more. So like it's all very subtle. It is like a hidden character in there, but you do get a sense of just how the ideas around work and women in work were changing at that time as well.
Yeah, and her job, it seems to me, as a secretary, like half of her job that we ever see her do is managing his relationships, her boss's mistress and her boss's marriage. Like, I was just like, this is a fascinating commentary on like just the women in the workplace and what women are sort of expected to provide, always catering to the needs of men. It's really interesting.
Well, it's kind of like the Hong Kong version of Mad Men.
Yeah. Totally.
I was exactly thinking that.
Yeah. I was they took Don Draper's look from Mr. Tony Leung in this movie.
Yeah, I'm sure Don Draper totally would have also been fine with not consummating it too.
His character was so honorable. Oh my god. Anyway.
Oh my god, I know.
Yeah.
But I think essentially what we're all trying to say is this movie pops. That's our question.
Yes.
Yeah. I love this movie so much.
All-time favorite.
Yeah, agreed. And that, honestly, I think for me, it's just almost as much to the soundtrack.
That theme. And
that theme is intoxicating.
Go ahead.
No, I was just I can't, when I hear it, it's like a siren. Like I just, like, not that it comes up a lot or something, but I just love it.
Can I share one, it's not a fun fact, it's an irritating fact. Like sort of Oscar so white early 2000s. In the Mood for Love was not nominated for any Academy Awards, but 3 years later, Sofia Coppola credited In the Mood for Love as a significant inspiration for her 2003 film Lost in Translation, which did win Academy Awards, and she specifically thanked Wong Kar-wai in her Oscar acceptance speech. And I know that I've only recently watched this movie, but I just, in the same way that like I'm just always angry in retrospect. You know, and I did love Lost in Translation when I first saw it. I haven't seen it in a long time. But In the Mood for Love is just this spellbinding game changer of a film, and for it to not get any Academy Award love is...
It's like you're angry from the year 2000.
I am angry from 20 years ago. I'm always angry from 20 years ago. This is sort of
the
my
presidential race that upset you that year. Do you want to get a lot of things out here?
There's
or like
just
what?
well, there's a bunch of different injustices that I'm
okay.
constantly trying to like retroactively. I just want to like name it because it just bothers me so much that I mean it doesn't matter. Like the movie did great. It's obviously it's a masterpiece. It doesn't need the Oscars. But it just irritates me that, like, when we think about...
My guess is that it's highly more revered than Lost in Translation. As much as I love that film, as much as it won an Oscar for screenwriting and things, I don't think it's on par. And I don't think...
It's not, but I just get irritated.
Yeah, sure.
I
share it.
It's so interesting because I never even thought about the Oscar snub before. But it made me think of, you know, how when, Bong Joon-ho was kind of winning all his awards of Parasite, he kind of mentioned something about the Oscars being very local, and I think that sentiment speaks to me so much in regards to this film because I never it's always been so highly revered in Asia in particular, well, internationally really, but I've never people in Hong Kong know how good it is.
No, for sure. And it doesn't, I understand it doesn't actually matter. But I mean, that's
fair.
It's been the way a lot of things have gone, and
exactly.
we can continue to be mad at that. So yes, we do like to say whether or not we think a film pops. Obviously, I think we all do, but let's just say it on record. Yeah. Elaine,
all the pops,
all the pops, yeah,
all the pops, yes.
All the pops, yeah.
Well, we also love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. So as our guest, would you like to go first?
I would love to recommend, since we just spent this lovely hour talking about In the Mood for Love, I would love to recommend Wong Kar-wai's other very beautiful film, Chungking Express, starring also Tony Leung. So if you
all right then.
If you enjoyed Tony Leung in this one, you will most definitely enjoy him in Chungking Express, and it's about these kind of two parallel love stories involving two different cops, and it is more romantic comedy. It probably veers more into romantic comedy territory than certainly In the Mood for Love, and that's one that I also watch time and time again to make myself just solely for, I will say this, I don't think this spoils anything. There's a scene where Tony Leung in his kind of loneliness starts talking to inanimate objects around his apartment, like a sad towel, and it is just like, I don't know how you pull that off by making that extremely charming, but he does. And also stars the lovely Faye Wong, and has a killer soundtrack as well. So,
of course, yes.
Would highly recommend the 1994 film Chungking Express.
That's awesome.
I should just say now that was exactly what I was going to recommend too. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's great. It's an excellent twofer. I mean, if we want to do entirely all films of Wong Kar-wai, I can recommend. I mean, I don't think that Norah Jones is a great actor, but weirdly enough, Blueberry Hill is one of his films that I have seen. I've seen a few other films of his, but I saw this when I was in France 12 years ago or 13 years ago. It had only opened there. It hadn't opened in North America yet, and I saw it at a theater with English subtitles so that I could review it for a paper I was working for, because I needed to file a piece for the next week. And what a beautiful film. weirdly starring Nora Jones.
Okay, I'll be different, and I'm just gonna say that I have really enjoyed the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, which actually, I know thematically is very similar to the look of In the Mood for Love. It's set in the 60s. She's a chess champion, orphan chess champ, you know, that old trope. And I was a little bit like, why does this keep popping up on my Netflix to watch this? And so I was a little like, I wasn't sure. And now I'm 4 episodes in, there's only 7. So I'm going to kind of slow down because it is so good and smart and beautiful and stars. We did The Witch here for the podcast for Halloween a couple of years ago, and it stars the same actress who is just riveting. Anyway, highly recommended. I think we should do it. There's going to be a 2nd season. I don't know if people are getting back into chess. I used to play a lot of chess with my brother. I was not a chess prodigy. You probably have never heard of me and my chess accomplishments. But I don't think you really need to know chess I mean, it's definitely a little bit of an advantage. But it's just so, and again, it's one of those things where you're just so thrilled that somebody pitched Netflix with like a story about a girl who plays chess, and they're like, yes, do it. And luckily, when it was good and people have time, it is like, hovering between number 1 and number 2 on Netflix right now.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it's really good.
Yeah.
It is
really good.
Yeah.
I heard it was described to me as sexy chess, and so I'm in. I have a small correction. The movie that I saw was not called Blueberry Hill. It's called My Blueberry Nights.
You were thinking of the song.
I was, but I do believe they do sing the song the film, I think. So to be fair to me, but
yes.
it stars like Nora Jones and Jude Law and I think Rachel Weisz. It's Natalie Portman, and Rachel Weisz, David Strathairn, Cat Powers in it. Anyway,
okay,
it's quite a cast. Is
We
it
were
great?
talking about
No,
this
but it looks beautiful.
We were talking about this before, but there's also a movie called Lust Caution.
Yeah,
that
right. Okay.
If you're like a Tony Leung fan, like it's like super sexy movie.
I'm in. I am sold.
I was reading the synopsis of it, and it's listed as an erotic espionage period film.
Woo!
And it really is.
Yeah.
It really is that.
Yeah. It hit one of my mark and one of Lisa's. So.
Yeah, the espionage. I'm in.
It was directed by Ang Lee, so
okay,
it was
awesome.
It's fairly. It should be available.
That's great.
The lesson here is to watch all of Tony Leung's films.
Of course. Oh my God.
Film Fest, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Elaine, for spending time with us tonight. We're so happy to have you.
All the way from Toronto.
I know, in the Eastern time zone.
So extra thank you for
so it's
staying
extra
up with
late
us.
for you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. If anybody wants to find you online, do you want them to or no?
I mean, I am available on Twitter, I suppose, at eChowDaily. Yeah.
There we go. Perfect.
That's where I
Perfect. And you can hang out with us on the social medias as well. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We've got Vancouver Podcast Festival is coming up November 18th to 22nd. So you can come and spend time with some of us there. And you could rate and review us 5 stars.
5 stars.
For 5 years. Our 5th anniversary was last week. 5 stars for 5 years. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And as always, thanks to Andrea Gin for being our co-host and our producer here. We really love being able to do this. We don't know how long the pandemic will be, but we will always be here for you. So whatever that looks like, however much icing I start consuming, we'll see. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.